Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. My guest today is somebody that I've been really looking forward to picking his brain a bit more. He's widely known as an expert in many different areas. Predominantly, he's had innovative techniques as it relates to optimizing both the mind and the body. He's an adjunct professor. He's also formerly the founder and CEO of a company called Helicase, which focused on cutting edge science and technology to enhance mental and physical performance through things like nutrition, sleep, and cognitive programs. Prior to that, he started a company known as Mind Plus Matter, which provided clients with a single source of cutting edge performance enhancements tools. I think while all of that is super fascinating, as I dug a little bit deeper into his bio, funny thing is this gentleman, he's very humble. It wasn't until I really started digging deep into his bio that I learned things that, he was called a mad scientist, issued by the US Army Training and Doctoring Command. He was a fellow issued by the Synthetic Biology Leadership Excellence Accelerator Program, Leader of Tomorrow by the Global Biotech Revolution, the Next Generation National Security Fellow by the Center of New American Security. And there's so many different things, both issued by the U.S. Department of Education. He was issued awards by the Department of Homeland Security and so forth. But it all comes down to his ability to increase human performance, both physically and mentally. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Andrew Herr.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for that really extensive and pretty generous introduction. It's been a really fun journey through my career, but always looking for opportunities to help people achieve more by tuning up their body and mind.
And for those of you who are listening, while at some point we may get into the tactical components of all the different businesses that he's built and grown, but even more important to that, we get paid direct proportion to our ability to make smart, intelligent decisions. When you wake up in the morning, how clear is your mind? How ready are you to answer your team's questions? Do you have a clear vision of the future and how you're going to attack the day? When presented with a challenge, can you sustain that energy throughout the day to be able to make great decisions all the way through to the end of the day? And of course, just as important is it to have that energy at the end of the day. Are you able to unwind, get good quality sleep, be a little more stress free, and continue that over and over again? As CEOs and leaders, it is very, very, really demanding. So, Andrew, when you're dealing with top performers, what would you see is the biggest areas of opportunity that is more common the people that you meet?
So, most of our clients today are entrepreneurs and executives, and our whole business is built on this ability to personalize the individual. But I want to give you three examples from the science that'll then pull back to what we see in our community for why, sort of this mind and body stuff really can affect your business.
Sure.
If I take the part of a bacteria that tells your immune system you have an infection
Yeah.
and freaks it out, and then that causes inflammation by injecting it into you, the inflammation in your body is going to cause anxiety within
Okay.
2 hours. And so that's the kind of stuff that affects decision making. It affects your ability to work with your team. Your level of confidence and decisions will drop. Two, if I test your blood sugar when you come home and then give you a voodoo doll of your spouse and ask how many pins you want to put in the voodoo doll of your spouse and how much do you want to punish them by playing loud music they hate, your blood sugar level correlates with the amount you're likely to punish your spouse. And by the way,
Oh,
that's not just your spouse, that's your team members. That's getting upset at a partner or somebody, your potential prospect. And then third, if your stress hormone levels are higher, so I'm going to take this is a study that was done in the US Army. You take soldiers who just came out of a high stress event versus a low stress event. You give them a picture that's fairly complicated and give them a colored pen and a black pen. And halfway through them reproducing this drawing, you switch colors. And the people who just came out of a low stress event kind of do the outline and then fill in the details, sort of like understand the framework and then fill in the details. And the people who just came out of a high stress event literally draw it left to right. So stress hormones actually linearize our thinking. They take us out of this complex adaptive thinking that is absolutely critical for the business environment we all operate in, where hundreds of things inside and outside of our business are changing every day. So your levels of anxiety and stress, your relationships, your strategy and decision making, all of these are affected by how you're taking care of your mind and body.
So let me sort of paint the picture of the average person. They have to set their alarm to get up in the morning and they're groggy, might hit the snooze button a few different times, lean over, grab their cell phone, start the day with a little bit of stress. Then they go to lunch. They have carb heavy lunch, followed by another, maybe a soda with caffeine. Then that's to get them through the energy towards the evening. At this point, they're super stressed out. They finish the day with a cocktail to unwind and then start the day all over again. A type personality. Would you agree with that?
I'd say that's more common than would be ideal and pretty far from optimal because you just
Yeah.
described swing blood sugar levels, inflammation. When you eat sugar before stress, it can double your cortisol level, double your stress hormone levels. Like you're just in cycle after cycle of, you know, bad things causing making it harder and harder, damaging your sleep. Not enough sleep causes more inflammation, which compromises your blood sugar control. And now we're just in this vicious cycle over and over. And that's why you see a lot of Americans walking around overweight, diabetes. You know, there's a lot of factors that obviously play into these, but you know, we're in a really challenging space and people who are building businesses have that stress plus everything else going on. And so, you know, I think anyone trying to push themselves to the max and build beyond seven figures, beyond eight figures, beyond nine figures, there is just this huge opportunity to help themselves and frankly make it easier. Like, you know, my goal is to figure out what you should eat, take, and do to look, feel, and perform. But what you just described is probably not the optimal for living, frankly, a happy life, let alone the most productive life.
So let's dissect each part of that and let's talk about what an optimal situation would look like. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
So, in the morning, what is the optimal morning routine and why is this important?
So you're going to hear me say a lot that it depends on the individual, but let me give you some rough outlines to help people think about what's right for themselves.
Sure.
One, if your problems are more caused by inflammation, and you might experience that as gut issues, pain in joints, skin issues, or even, you know, on your blood test seeing elevated levels of inflammation, not eating breakfast in the morning can help because that tends to tamp down inflammation. But if your problems are driven by stress hormone levels, and by stress, the way people think about it, then not eating in the morning tends to amplify your stress hormone levels. And
Wow.
so that's a big problem. So, my ideal case for most people would be solve the inflammation, solve the stress, and probably eat some. So, you have plenty of fuel, but high quality fuel available for your brain. And that can be simple, it doesn't have to be complicated. Half an apple and some almond butter. Could be some eggs if you do well with eggs. So, now you've got a little fuel in your system. And what about caffeine? I don't have an overall problem with caffeine. Some people don't get any negative effects from caffeine. Phenomenal. Some people get a baseline level of anxiety they may not even recognize. So can be great. So now we're fueled up. We're trying doing things to mitigate our stress. If you wake up and looking straight at your phone and your phone is a source of stress, that can be a way that kicks you off kilter. Why? When your cortisol levels rise from stress, it actually prevents the prefrontal cortex, that higher thinking executive part of your brain. It prevents it from being fueling as easily. What are things that can help? Maybe you just wait to check your phone till after you've had a moment, till after you've eaten. If you can't do that, totally understand. Things like meditation or breath work in the morning can be super high value. So now we're calmer, we're more focused, our brain is fueled, and we can get into the day and think about what are the parts of the day where you do your best work. If you are someone who needs to generate content or you need to make strategic decisions, maybe don't schedule your kind of like back to back to back meetings during that time. General rule of thumb, do not have your most important meeting of the day right before you're going to eat again, because that's when your blood sugar and fuel levels are starting to come down.
Got it. What about brain fog? Because I know brain fog is a big issue that many people have in the morning. What are the causes of brain fog, and how do you eliminate brain fog?
So there's three most common causes of brain fog. Sort of your circadian rhythm is misaligned. You're waking up and going to bed at really different times. You're getting bright light at night in a way that you wake up and your brain thinks it should still be asleep. Second is inflammation. What are the main causes of inflammation? Diet, bad fats, sugar, lots of carbs, not getting enough polyphenols, these beneficial compounds in fruits and vegetables.
And the third reason?
Third piece would be stress. You mentioned that stress decreases the fuel and the availability in the parts of your brain that matter most. And so, enough stress levels, and you're kind of fuzzing your brain, if you will, which many people experience as brain fog.
Now, this seems to be a very popular drug within the entrepreneurial, especially the startup Silicon Valley type area. Adderall and Ritalin, as and others that people are using for focus. I know they have very addictive properties, and anybody I know that has been on it and then went off it, they told their horror stories about how bad it was. But from your perspective, as somebody who's optimizing the mind and whatnot, what is your feeling?
So these drugs like Adderall and Ritalin are amphetamine drugs, and they're central stimulants. They're acting in your brain, but also they act peripherally because your brain is connected to the rest of your body. And these things just turn everything up. You can think of them as like they fuel the fire. So you have more dopamine, which means more drive, more adrenaline and noradrenaline, these things that give you energy and action potential. So they help a lot of people focus more. The challenge is, depending on what you're taking, how much, and when, they also can do things like decrease sleep quality. So
Yeah,
this is a thing people can test. Your heart rate variability is the amount of time between beats in your heart and how much that changes beat to beat. Our heart's not a perfect metronome. And the more adrenaline and sympathetic nervous system fight or flight activity in our body, the more regular your heart is. So if you have a lower HRV, that fight or flight system is turned up higher. And so now you have a higher fight or flight, potentially worse sleep. And that's when these drugs can then be affecting people in kind of materially negative performance ways. So I would say, one, be careful that you're not taking them to feel better and that feeling better is clouding your judgment. Two, don't get in a loop with them. And three, figure out if the risk reward is right, because a
sure.
lot of people are using these to paper over other problems in their physiology that are going to both cause them problems in the short and long term instead of actually fixing them to have the energy and focus they need. I
Sure.
will tell you from my own personal experience that when I found the optimal diet for myself during the day, my energy levels doubled.
I believe it. Yeah, yeah, that's one thing for anybody that has the opportunity to meet you in person. When you meet somebody and you look at them, and right off the bat, you can say that person is healthy. You have that that appearance right off the bat. You just know, okay, this person is healthy. Before we get into like the post lunch type of activities, let me ask you a question on a personal level. So I was diagnosed with severe ADHD. The doctor at one point said I had one of the worst cases of learning disabilities that she had ever seen. All the things that a kid should never hear when, from a doctor back in the day. But all my life, I've been experimenting with different things to try to figure out what is going to allow me the focus that I need. If I don't sleep well, my focus is absolute trash. But there are certain things, and more recently, I've noticed that kava, for whatever reason, has really sort of just it's been calming and allows a lot of focus. That has been sort of like recently one thing that has really helped quite a bit. I've tried to minimize my caffeine substantially. I'll have a pre-workout before working out. What's your feeling on kava?
I think first thing is like you're running experiments on yourself, and that's exactly the right way to do it. You're testing what works. And so, first, I love the experimental approach. That's the exact right way to do it. So, on Kava specifically, you know, I would say it's one where we have a little bit less research, but the main risk seems to be at low doses to be potential liver toxicity. But there is some research suggesting the way you process it can affect that. And so hopefully the companies out there are doing it in a good way. So I would say, like, you know, I would say one, here's like my general framework, and this would apply to you with Kava. One, are you tracking enough kind of variables that you feel, okay, it's increasing my calm and focus, but is it hurting you anywhere else? No? Okay. Step one, good. Sounds like Kava is working for you in general. Two, if you stop it, you get a huge drop off. No? Okay, great. Then you're not pushing the system in a way that's potentially putting you at risk of either addictive or just being kind of needing it to
Hmm.
perform. Three, can you do it not every day and
Right.
still get the benefits? What is that? Could be 4 days a week. And you might do that for a period and stop for a period. And then three, are you tracking the things that you might not be able to see early signs of problems through blood work and others
Yep.
to make sure your liver's good, your kidneys are good? Not that kava is necessarily going to damage your kidneys or anything, but can you track those at least on a quarterly basis? And I think if you're doing that kind of stuff, then and it's working for you, then fantastic. You found a great tool that aligns with your brain and body.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Now, as we move on, lunch, if we, in general, I know there's a bunch of foods for and diets is for optimizing, the brain. So, in all your medical research, somebody wants to have that optimal brain power. What is your general rule of thumb?
My general rule of thumb is that each of those can be the right answer, but it depends on the person. A lot of carbs unopposed. Why? Spiking your blood sugar causes inflammation. Two, a lot fried food. The frying process increases pro-inflammatory effects of the food. So that beautiful golden brown of a breaded fried chicken is unfortunately, while delicious, also pro-inflammatory.
Hmm.
Three, getting too many bad fats in your diet, an overwhelming amount of omega 6 fatty acid vegetable oils, not good. Four, not getting these polyphenolic compounds that are anti-inflammatory. So these are fruits, vegetables. They're the blue and red colors in raspberries and blueberries. They're in vegetables. These
Hmm.
actually signal to your cells to build up their defenses and can decrease inflammation. And probably not getting any fiber or other thing for most people is bad. But then why does the carnivore diet help some people dramatically? And the answer is some people are also have these pretty profound food sensitivities. So food sensitivities are based on the latest research, actually are an allergy, but they're an allergy only in the lining of your gut. You cannot test for it in your skin or your blood.
Wow.
So there are many things, you hear Tom Brady doesn't eat nightshades. Nightshades are a category of thing that for some people are totally fine. And for others, they cause this GI inflammatory thing. So this like level of variability is super high. But if carnivore works for you, if you're going to go off it, run an elimination diet and figure out what the heck is causing your gut to get torn up from what you're eating. If keto works for you, who does keto work really well for? Hey, if you've got blood sugar problems and diabetes, really cutting out carbs can be dramatically effective, and keto can be very, very effective if you run it smartly. You might not want to have too many saturated fats if you're predisposed to like heart and other things, but keto can be good.
It's funny. I hired this health coach, and he, well-known guy, works with Olympic athletes, and I mean, he top of his game, $2,500 an hour. This is like real deal, right? His perspective was really fascinating. You would think working with the Olympians, his focus would be on how fast are you moving and what is your body mass and your fat and all this other fun stuff. But his most telling barometer began with the mind. And everything was based on the mind and how the mind worked throughout the course of the day, and where there was, a where there were blips and focus or blips and energy and everything else. But he said, if you get the mind fully dialed in, everything else just happens to work its way. You lose weight, you perform better, your reaction is faster. And that changed my perspective on so much because it allowed me to create a different level of awareness. Before that, I was focusing in on the wrong things. If I focused on nothing more than that, of course, the day and just paid attention to one thing, let alone All this other stuff, paid attention to one thing, could the rest of it take care of itself? And sure enough, the vast majority, over 90% of everything that I looked to optimize took care of itself when I paid attention to nothing else but my brain. Would you?
So love that. Except you had me every word you said except the last word where you
Brain.
said you paid attention to your brain. Because I agree that you're paying attention to your mind. Your mind is the integral across your brain and body. It's combining all the signals together.
Yeah.
And so when your body's working worse, your mind is not working as well. When your brain
Yes.
is working worse, your mind's not working as well. So 100% agree. When people come to work with our coaching service, they often want like all the whiz bang data stuff. And we like doing that. And we can take
Sure.
wearables and we do all your blood work and everything. But the subjective experience, energy, focus, mood is actually the most powerful data set we have.
Sure. I want to skip ahead and move towards sleep because I know we're pushing the boundaries of the time that we have together. But one thing that I want to add before we even get to sleep, because it actually does impact sleep. I used to think that, look, I'm going to have one cocktail, maybe two. One drink negatively impacted my sleep substantially
Yeah.
and my body's overall recovery. So, there, even if you think it's harmless to have as little as one drink, there is a very measurable and quantifiable consequence as a result. Fair
Yeah. And
enough?
look, I mean, demonstrably true for most people. Some people actually don't get a big effect, negative effect from it. And, God bless them. But what do we know about alcohol? Alcohol increases your sympathetic activity and your adrenaline. How do we know that? Think about the last time you drank a lot. You probably woke up the next morning, heart beating fast, sweaty. All those things are signs that that adrenaline system is ramped up. So, what happens when you're more stressed normally? Do you sleep as well? Of course not. And so now you're stuck the next day with lower cognitive reserves, more anxiety. People like to talk about the hangxiety, like
Yeah.
your system is metabolically challenged. Actually, your blood sugar control is not as good. So all these things together, alcohol causes them. And so I'm not telling people never to drink. I just want people to know, to have the operating manual for their body to know, hey, is drinking worth it? Is it not worth it? If it's my buddy's wedding, that's a different calculation than if I've got a big meeting tomorrow.
Sure.
And so, I think that's just the ability to understand and know. And then if you're like, hey, I actually don't feel bad after I drink, the one thing I'd say is if you're not in really good shape, then it may just be because you don't feel good every day. So careful with that one. But because only about 15 to 20% of people does it not really affect their sleep, I'd say. So yeah, 100% alcohol. And so actually we've been working on and now are about to launch a new product that's specifically targeted at improving sleep after you drink for
Wow.
people who do decide to, because this sleep thing seems to be the major driver of why you don't feel good the next day. I know people talk about toxins and other stuff, but like really that disrupted sleep is such a big deal. So we'll have that. We have a fly kit, which is our jet lag product, and this will be the Fiesta kit
Yeah.
for when you drink, and it'll help manage the effects of not of alcohol in your sleep, which we're really excited about getting out there. We've used it extensively in our client base, and I just say they really like it.
Awesome. I think people by and large underestimate the value of sleep, and it has become somewhat of a badge of honor without prioritizing sleep. What does that do to the CEO, the entrepreneur, the founder's brain and their ability to perform at optimal level?
Yeah. So one, I want to respect the founders and CEOs who are grinding because they're putting their heart and soul behind their company. And so first I want to give a lot of respect to that. The question, however, is we should care less about hours on the job than actual output and effectiveness. And so the most effective you is probably not one who hasn't slept, even though it might give you 6 or 8 hours more of work because you're going to be totally zonked, not able to focus, worse decisions. Why? What we know is even if you're getting 6 hours a night and you need 8, that if you do that every night, that builds up. After a couple of weeks of that, you're starting to perform closer to someone who just pulled their first all-nighter,
Um,
which is a kind of a wild concept that missing 2 hours sleep a night could get you to an all-nighter level of distraction and inability to focus. But the research is demonstrably clear. It keeps building until you reset. So where does it affect you? Focus, strategy, decision making, relationships, all the things that drive our businesses. So we want you getting, even if you're going to get less than you need, maximize it. Light, what is that? Darkness, cold room, not taking stimulants too late, like caffeine or others. Warm shower before bed is one of the best hacks for people. Raises your
Really?
body temperature, which and then lets it drop really quickly. And a dropping body temperature is a sign to your brain to go to sleep. And then you drop that heat through the night, especially if you have like an 8 sleep or a
Yeah.
Ooler, one of those devices. So shower before bed plus something like an 8 sleep is just this home run combination, as well as we have a lot of supplements that we use with people, but those are highly variable on who they work for and who they don't.
Awesome. So, again, for our listeners who are wondering why we're talking about health today and we're talking about mental performance and optimal mental performance with AI and all these other technologies that have come about, we're going to quickly see the edge and the advantage is going to lean more and more and more towards those individuals that have the ability to think creatively and to think strategically. Because even though we have these AI technologies that can take care of a lot of tasks, understand that the quality of the output is directly related to the quality of the input that you're able to put in. It will learn anything that you could ultimately learn in a book. So, what is your ability to push AI beyond what is already in a book? How can you think more strategically? How can you think more creatively with all your experience and working with some of the greatest minds on the planet? What's the biggest tip that you could give us?
If you're going to make a change in your life or for performance or health, run it as an experiment. This is the way to figure out if it works for you. Decide, hey, I want more energy in the afternoon, then just run it as an experiment. For 3 days, I'm going to make this change. Do I have more energy in the afternoon? No? Great. You don't need to make that change. Try the next thing. So I think running everything and conceptualizing it as an experiment is the best recommendation I can give. And it's doubly valuable because if you're like, oh, but I have to make this change in diet or sleep for the rest of my life, then sure, you're gonna you're gonna be stressed or maybe you don't want to do that. But if it's, hey, I'm gonna experiment with this for a week, it takes a lot of the stress off and just say, hey, I'll try it. And you know what? If it's not worth it, then don't do it. But if it's worth it, then you now have a new tool in your toolkit that you can use when it matters. So big, like I could tell you diet recommendations, I could tell you supplement or sleep. I can give you a meditation protocol for enhancing creativity so you can keep up with the AI. But at the end of the day, the most valuable thing you can do is run things in experiment. And that's why I'm really excited. We're basically putting an app out here soon that will connect to every wearable and essentially allow you to not only target which ones, but help you run and track the results of every experiment based on how your mind's working, also your sleep and other things. So we're really excited to get this out there and help more and more people beyond just those who can afford our really elite one-on-one coaching.
Fantastic. So, and Andrew, you may be one of these people who has the answer. So, if people want to learn more about you and the different products that you have and so forth, where do we send them?
So, come to us at our website. It's fount.bio, FOUNT.bio. I'm on Twitter at Andrew Herr Bio. Follow me. We're going to start putting out some really exciting content that we call the operating manual for your body, understanding what the immune system is vis-a-vis inflammation and how it all works and what messes with it. So follow us there. We're at Fount Bio on Twitter and Instagram. So would love for people to follow. And if you have any questions about what I talked about on this episode, feel free to reach out and shoot me a note either on those platforms or through our site. And we love allowing or enabling entrepreneurs and people pushing past 7 figures and beyond to dramatically amp up their performance, because not just for that, but because they use that to then do good stuff in the world for themselves, their families, their communities. And that's our mission. And so reach out if I can help.
Awesome. So, again, this wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. For more tips, strategies, and information, also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. Don't forget to also check out Andrew's website, fount.bio. Again, that's fount.bio. I said it right, Andrew?
Nailed it.
Fount.bio.
Nailed it.
Follow them across social for additional tips on optimizing your mind and your body for peak performance. So, again, this is Charles Gadet with my friend Andrew Herr, and I will see you in another episode.